ending poverty in the United States would actually be pretty easy. It would? I mean, I agree it would be easy, but I think this article isn't going to go down the rabbit hole that I would go down or the path I would go down. Yeah, my solution to any homelessness would be very simple. We tomorrow end all involuntary, created by coercion, social welfare programs. Get rid of it all. No more homeless shelters. No more state-funded soup kitchens. No more social welfare of any kind. It all goes bye-bye. Literally no help, no aid for the homeless at all, except for whatever private charities wanted to do. And of course, if you did all that, stop the government from taking so much of your money so that you couldn't help people as you saw fit, private charities would pop up en masse to help them. But I think they would be a little more discriminating. At least I would hope so. They used to be more discriminating in the past, meaning if you were some drunken layabout bum, they wouldn't help you. If you were somebody who just happened to have broken your leg and been put out of work and ended up on the street because of that, through no fault of your own, basically, then you would get help. But if you were homeless because of bad choices, they wouldn't help you. So private charity is a hell of a lot more discriminating than public sector, state-funded, welfare, charity, which is what it is really, state-funded charity, a monopoly on charity. Oh, man. So that would be my solution. Yeah, get rid of all the help out there. And if you get rid of all the help, then you stop enabling it. I'm going to guess that that's not their solution, of course. Anyway, before I get into this story, I'd like to ask those of you out there that like and appreciate the raw, red-pilled, in-your-face nature of my content, to please consider going and checking out my website, therealistphilosopher.com. That is therealistphilosopher.com. You'll find a menu at the top of the page. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Gab, Instagram. I suggest you at least follow me on 2 of those, Twitter and Facebook, if you want to keep abreast of new content, as well as be aware of me, say, moving to any new platforms. You want to be able to keep track of me. You should at least follow me on a couple of those. Also follow me on BitChute, bitchute.com/TheRealistPhilosopher. That's BITCHUTE/TheRealistPhilosopher. And if you'd really like to support my content to the max, you might want to consider making a donation. There's 3 ways you could do this. Number 1 is my Bitcoin wallet address. Number 2 is my Cash App. And number 3 is my Patreon, which is a per-piece platform of a subscription-style nature. I make about 8 pieces a month. So if you donate $1, that would be $8 a month, 50 cents, $4 a month. It's entirely up to you how much you donate. Any amount is greatly appreciated, so go check that out, therealistphilosopher.com. That is therealistphilosopher.com. Could really use your help. Onward to the story. So ending poverty in the United States would be actually very easy. Yeah. I'm already smelling commie pinko propaganda. When we speak to our sisters and brothers, they're not my sisters and brothers. So immediately we have the collectivist, we're all in this together, implied bullshit message, which is what you get from communists. We're not in this together, and you're not my sister, and I'm not your brother, so shut the fuck up with this bullshit. If you speak to our brothers and sisters living in poverty in the United States, the confessional trope that describes so many dysfunctional relationships should be our opening line. Poverty is a choice that the fortunate collectively make. What? Poverty is a choice that the fortunate collectively make. Say what? Social worker Joanne Goldblum. All social workers are communists, by the way. And journalist Colleen Shaddox write in Broken America, Seeing, Understanding, and Ending U.S. Poverty. Yeah. It's amazing it hasn't been ended. It's amazing that it's actually increased exponentially the more money that you spend on it. Yeah, imagine that. No American should ever be poor. Why? Why? I love the is-ought logical fallacy. No American should. Yeah. Why not? Hey, if you spend all your money on crack and meth and don't make good choices, don't you deserve to be poor? Of course, we fall far short of that mark by globalists. Of course, they're going to bandy about the bullshit about how America's the richest country in the world. America's not rich. People in America are rich. I do love how everything they say, though, tries to collectivize the ownership of the wealth in America and thereby validate them accessing that wealth, stealing it, right? It's not stealing. It belongs to all of us. You didn't build that. You didn't learn that. Somebody else taught you how to build that. Somebody else learned you how to build that, how to make that. So it's not your wealth. It's all of ours. Yeah, okay, Obama. By Goldblum and Shaddix's measure, over 120 million people living in the United States struggle to meet their most basic needs. Do they, though? Do they really? With the food stamps and WIC and all the fucking welfare programs, they sure don't struggle if they're a single mommy. In fact, they're encouraged to pop out more kids. Single mothers can get like 75, 80, 100,000 bucks a year worth of benefits. That doesn't sound like struggling. I think you mean men. Poor men in America struggle. Sure. There's not too many welfare programs out there for them, no, and they can't pop out kids that entitle them to more welfare cheddar. The pandemic has caused another 8 million to fall into poverty this year. The pandemic didn't cause that. The government's retarded response did. Worse yet, the poor in our nation are often blamed for their own crises. A lot of them are to blame for it, though. You don't want to admit that, though, right? It's all or nothing with you people, right? Yeah, there's no middle ground. Yeah, there's no shades of gray. Until it's convenient for you. With lawmakers and even service providers citing bad behavior or ignorance as the cause of individual poverty. Yeah, we can't do anything that lays blame at the foot of the individual because we don't believe in individuals. Everything's a collective in our mind, meaning the socialist pinko commies mind. In Broken America, Goldblum and Shaddix reject that narrative. Well, of course they do. They're communists. They don't believe in individual responsibility. They believe in group or collective responsibility. U.S. policies that benefit the wealthy cause poverty. Is that a fact? And how does that work? This is the zero-sum game fallacy. Idiots that don't understand economics who believe that somehow the amount of wealth that exists on the planet is static, that they believe somehow that there's the same amount of wealth in the world as there was 200 years ago. They apparently haven't studied economics and understand that it's grown exponentially. We don't want to understand that. If we understand that wealth is created, then we can no longer stick to the zero-sum game narrative that says that all wealth is static and set, and there's just one pie, and some people are unfair to taking too much of that pie, which leaves too little pie for some other people. Yeah. So they insist that it's the wealthy that cause poverty. They're taking too much pie. And changes to those policies can end it. Where's your evidence for that? None. Oh, wait. 100+ failed commie pinko socialist countries where this shit was tried and failed. But that wasn't real communism. That wasn't real socialism. Oh, really? Well, where has the real socialism communism that you say will not cause that to happen actually existed? Nowhere except in my own mind. Okay. Almost immediately in this book, you confront the maxim, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and he will feed himself for a lifetime. Anti-poverty efforts should stop making assumptions about people's fishing ability. Excuse me, but they're not talking about fishing abilities, okay? They're talking about a person's ability to fend for themselves, whatever that might be, whatever productive endeavors they might be good at. Be it digging holes for post holes, digging ditches, stacking fruit, like retards are very good at it. And it's amazing to me. Even the dumbest, most incapable among us, people who oftentimes can't take care of themselves, they got to live with mommy and daddy until mommy and daddy croak, and then they got to find themselves another caregiver, can still go out and get jobs. But these loser communists who have average IQs, apparently, can't do that. Oh, we should stop making assumptions about people's fishing abilities. Yeah. Apparently, these commies don't understand or don't want to understand what that saying actually means. It's past time to stop judging people and give them fish. You do understand it's not literally talking about fishing. It's talking about learning useful, productive skills that will then enable that person to fend for themselves. Well, not everybody can learn useful, productive skills. Really? With the division of labor that we have out in the world, with the millions upon millions of jobs and skill sets, you're not good at anything? Really? Can't punch a cash register? That'd be $5.25 for your Whopper and fries and soda, sir. Can't do that, really? Talk about a preset bigotry of low expectations here. Anyway, that saying summarizes everything that's wrong with how the United States addresses poverty. Really? We say the problem is the person. Well, communists don't accept that because they themselves want to create, they want to embrace a narrative that excuses their poor lot in life. If you look at most of, not all, but most commie, pinko, socialist scumbags are losers. They don't have any skills. They made bad choices, so they didn't learn any useful skills. They didn't build any human capital, so they can't make any money. And now they're sitting around bitching and moaning about how it's the system. It's all self-serving claptrap. So we need to fix the person and what that person lacks in skills, precisely. But does he even have a fishing pole? What? Oh, Lord, here we go. Here we go. Now, is this analogy meant to address the human capital that he didn't learn, or is it meant to address tools and actual real physical objects that he lacks? Because there's a lot of jobs, a lot of professions, you know. You don't have to go into business for yourself. You don't have to be a subcontractor. You don't have to have a fucking toolkit and tools and all of these real-world objective things that require wealth to attain to work. What about just pure human capital? I assume they're not talking about that, of course. Because then that goes back to the personal responsibility argument of learning useful skills, which they don't want to talk about. Is he too weak with hunger to go fish? Is the he in question actually a woman? And women aren't allowed to fish there? What? Are you now talking about third world Muslim countries? Because those are the places where women ain't allowed to work. They're going to walk around in big giant garbage bags where they're likely to die from heat stroke in the deserts they live in. Yeah, you don't want to address that, by the way. Yeah, you're such egalitarians. You're so feminist. You're so for equality that you are focusing on the countries that have the most equality, where women are, in fact, a top-tier preferred class. Well, if you were a real feminist, if you were a real egalitarian who cared about women's poor lot in this world, you would be focusing on the Muslim countries. It's so paternalistic and so horrible. Yeah, people say it all the time, like they've said something wise and caring. They are. Trust me. At the policy level, we create systems that actually make it harder for people to be self-sufficient. Oh, I agree. By helping them too much. For example, many people who are part of the TAANF, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or workforce development programs, are trained to become certified nursing assistants, CNAs. That's a very important job that we need to do. Right. But it is a poverty wage job. No, it's not. Only if you got like 5 kids. I love it. I love it. Oh, it's poverty wage. Well, you know, if you're an irresponsible person who chose to have 5 kids with a deadbeat who's now in prison, yeah, it's a poverty wage job. But if you're a single broad with no other mouths to feed except your own, you'll be doing quite well. Oh, no. No. No, we don't want to talk about that, right? Again, because that goes back to the whole aspect of personal choices and responsibility, which we don't want to talk about. But the government trains someone to be a CNA, and then it can feel like it's done something because it's gotten that person off of the rolls. Yeah. So the answer is to expand the rolls and give more welfare? I don't think so. You devote a good deal of the book to reviewing the data and the stories that describe U.S. poverty, but you always circle back to solutions, refuting the idea that we often hear that the poor will always be with us. But they will. Now, this person doesn't believe that because they don't believe in personal responsibility. They can't imagine that somebody would choose to be homeless. Some people do, by the way. Some people like the homeless lifestyle. I mean, if these people just watched some of those documentaries on the homeless, especially the ones in California, you'll actually see people saying, I like being homeless. I like the freedom. I don't have to work. I go to the shelter. I just found one place to sleep. They got all these soup kitchens. I get all the food I need. They got all this free health care. Oh, if I had to slave away for the man, my life would suck. There's a lot of people that actually do choose to be homeless. And there's other people that, through their own bad choices, are homeless, which is in and of itself choosing to be homeless. But no, this person doesn't want to acknowledge that. And even if they did, they would then make the argument that it's still all caused by the system. Because the system, the establishment, is so bad and so evil and so oppressive that it forces people to be homeless rather than deal with it. Oh, yeah. Always excuses. Why do you think we can, as your subtitle promises, end poverty in the United States? This person's a snake oil salesman, this writer of the book. Because poverty is simply not having enough money to meet your needs. Oh, that's the answer. Yet again, a total complete misunderstanding of economics. So this person's answer is just give them enough money. Well, if you do that, then would they work? They already don't work, so this is just going to further incentivize them not to work. And if they don't work, and if enough people stop working, well, who's going to create the goods, the food, the services that these people need to survive? Goods and services whose prices will go up because as more people stop working, this will have less people in the workforce creating those goods and services, and so the costs will skyrocket. And then everything's going to cost more, and then you're going to have to print more money, go into more debt, cause hyperinflation. And now that less goods and services are being created to represent that money, well, that money hyperinflates even further. You see, part of what is working as a hedge against inflation is the enormous amount of wealth that America creates annually. Well, if you shrink that down and have less goods and services that can be bought with that money, what happens? Well, the cost of that much smaller pool of goods and services skyrockets. And that's why you see countries like Venezuela, where a loaf of bread costs 100 million pesetas, or whatever the fuck their money is. So that's what happens in these commie countries. And when they become ever less productive, because of all these social welfare programs, what happens is the cost of what is being produced just skyrockets until you have shit costing 1 million times more than before. Oh, man, they don't seem to get this. The money for each particular country is representative of the goods and services within that country. If you reduce that pool, you just have all this money representing less. I don't understand why people don't understand this. I don't know why they don't get this. Apparently this author doesn't get that. So it goes on to say there's nothing more complicated about it than that. No, economics is actually not that simple when you start to really delve into it. It's actually pretty complicated. Everything is interrelated, okay? You don't seem to get that. And we live in the richest nation in the world. The nation is not rich. There's people in that nation who are rich. You need to stop conflating the people for the country itself. You need to stop collectivizing in your own mind the people and stop conflating them with some kind of collective that doesn't exist. Where there's plenty of money. No. I don't know what that means, by the way, plenty of money. I mean, you can just print money ad infinitum. It's not the money. It's not the fiat currency. It's what exists in that country in the form of wealth that is important. All right? So if we have the political will, we could end poverty. No, because you just print more money. And if you print more money, but you don't at the same time create an equal amount of goods and services, well, you're just lowering the value of that money while increasing the cost of the goods and services that do exist. No, they don't get that. If we had the political will, we could end poverty. Yo, just print money willy-nilly out of control. Yeah, that'll solve the problem. There are lots of different ways to do it. A living wage is necessary. Oh, the minimum wage bullshit. And by the way, a living wage varies depending on where you live. And if you live in shithole bebop fucking Baltimore, the living wage isn't so high. If you live in shithole San Francisco, that's a literal shithole that has poop maps to show where to avoid because there's an inordinate amount of human feces in this area as compared to that area. But the cost of living there is ridiculous because of zoning laws, regulations that don't allow new housing, rent control. Well, that's a much higher living wage there than in bebop, rap, shithole Baltimore. So that's one problem with your argument of a living wage. There is nothing more complicated about it than that. I think there is. A living wage is necessary. No, it's not. And a universal basic income can help. Where are you going to get the money for all this stuff? I'll just tax people more. We talk in the book about universal health care. Yeah, that'll cost. We're already strapped for cash. We're already spending more money than we have. So we need to talk about universal health care, housing support, about making water and electricity and heat a public good. You mean publicly funded. Where are you going to get all this money? This person just seems to think you can print money ad infinitum, and that's the solution. Hello, have you heard of inflation? Other countries do all of this. And there's no reason we could not do so as well. You do understand. They do it, and everything's great. Yeah, everything's going to be great until it's not great. Things were great in Venezuela. I love how you had all these idiots, Sean Penn and all these other fucking Hollywood morons running around talking about how great Venezuela was and how great Chavez was. And then what happened? They ran out of other people's money. Well, it hasn't collapsed yet, so it's going good. And then one day, it dropped off a fucking cliff, and everybody was starving. Yeah. If we just tax people appropriately, we can have the money to do all this. By the way, that's a lie. Studies have been done. If you were to tax the richest people in America at 100%, you wouldn't even come close to paying for universal health care, let alone all these other fantasy programs you want to support. And if you did all that, by the way, if you took the richest money, they would have no money for investment, no money for maintaining the current companies they already have, and no motivation to create any more wealth. They'd all just leave. I love how these idealistic idiots seem to think that if you tax the rich to such an extent where they're making no money, that they're not going to adapt. Oh, well, people don't react at all. We'll tax them at 100%, and they'll still continue to work just as hard for nothing. Oh, no, they won't pull up stakes and move to another country. Oh, no, taking their wealth with them. Sure they will, you idiots. Of course, these people live in an ideological bubble where critical thinking isn't allowed, let alone encouraged. So, yeah. We write about challenges in affording car insurance in places where you need a car to get to work. The difficulty in keeping the lights on and not being able to afford medicines. By the way, most of this has to do with big government and regulation, making everything too expensive. Before government got so big, meaning when it was just 1-2% of GDP, medicine was very cheap. Everybody could afford a doctor. Now, 30-40% of healthcare costs are just in paperwork to fulfill government regulatory requirements. Being in poverty is like walking across a rotted floor. There are so many ways you can fall through, and it all comes down to money. Yeah. The income gap between the lowest paid worker and CEOs has increased exponentially. In the past few decades, they always love to use this comparison, right? They always love to use this. The lowest paid person and the highest paid person, it's just such a huge gap that's unfair. Well, life isn't fair, motherfucker, okay? And by the way, the dude that's creating that means that billions in wealth, I think he's worth more than you are. I think a dude, if he's creating $1 billion in wealth, I think he should be getting $100 million. Why not? The other 900 fucking million, that's incredible. That's incredible, the amount of wealth this dude is creating. The problem with these people is a lack of imagination and a complete and total lack of how finance and economics work. That's really where the lack is. All right? So that is a lot of money that's churning around in our economy. Yeah, and of course those rich people, they just pour it into a fucking pool in a secret chamber under their house in the form of gold, and they occasionally go and swim in it like Scrooge McDuck. No, they don't put it in banks where it gets loaned out to poor people to open businesses or buy houses. Oh, no. Oh, yet another total lack of understanding in regards to what rich people do with their money and how it actually does benefit the poor and middle class, even though this person doesn't realize it. But it's not being shared appropriately. What are you talking about? Rich people don't put their money under their mattress. That has to be a big motherfucking mattress. They put it into banks, number one. Number two, it gets reinvested into their companies. Sometimes they buy more stock options in their companies. Sometimes they invest in other companies. And what does that do? Well, it gives those other companies the liquid capital to invest in expanding, to invest in infrastructure, which creates more jobs. And by shared, I don't mean some generous act. I mean that the worker in the warehouses who is making everything run deserves a fair share of the revenue he's generating. Well, that's a communist argument. We don't have that now. Oh, I see. I see. So let me ask you this, all right? You want this low worker who's creating very little value to own a share of the company. So will he be on the hook when it goes bankrupt? Oh, no. So no risk, but equal gain to the CEO. Really? That doesn't seem fair to me. I would think that the person who invests all the money, takes all the risk, and who is on the hook Meaning if that company doesn't work, he's fucked. He's in debtor's prison. He's bankrupt. His credit is fucked. He's living in an alley somewhere. They came and confiscated all his shit so they could sell it in an auction, all right? Now he's broke. His wife's left him. He's on the hook for alimony and child support. His kids hate him. Well, you can go find a new job. Lovely. But how does that encourage people in America to take risks, by the way? Huh? Why would you go start a business if the people who are coming to work for you automatically own a piece of your business, even though you're taking all the motherfucking risks and you invested all the motherfucking money? So the interviewer asks, you both have worked with poor people in the United States for a long time, but you write that it took a while for you to come to your own realizations about our approach to confronting poverty and how it's fundamentally flawed. It took them a long time to come to this shit, but these are just all ginned up conclusions that Marx came up with. They didn't come up with any of this. They've read it in a book somewhere. I was a social worker, communist, doing direct service with chronically homeless families. Chronically homeless. When they did have homes, they often did not have heat and hot water. Well, get better jobs. Learn better skills. You can go online. There's free courses you can take. There's lots of stuff you can do to improve your human capital. Oh, no. But that would mean taking personal responsibility. And if I did that, I wouldn't be able to blame other people for my bad circumstances. One mom who I worked with never had toilet paper. And often did not have clean diapers. Oh, really? Where was this? In America? I don't think so. I think this is all bullshit. Didn't she avail herself of all the social welfare programs available? You can get HUD. You can get WIC. You can get free diapers. You can get everything you need if you're a woman with kids. My colleagues and I discussed this. There's some stuff here that they're not telling us. This person was probably also a heroin, meth, coke, crack addict, and didn't have the energy to get up and go to the welfare office and apply for all the multiple welfare programs available from others, women with kids. My colleagues and I discussed this and went over various clinical reasons why she was choosing not to have toilet paper in her home. Yet one day I was in her home and saw her take her child's diaper off, empty the solids out, and put it back on. It was a watershed moment for me. Oh, God. By the way, why does she have kids and no man? Where's the man? Well, he divorced her, which usually isn't the case. In 80% of cases, it's the woman divorcing the man. And what if she never even married him? Where's the father? Oh, she chose a bad man. That's not on her? Or is there any personal responsibility if you end up in a bad situation? Any? No! We wouldn't have such an easy time fooling people into joining our ranks if we had such an idea as personal responsibility. We got to make it as attractive as possible. I see. Oh, yeah, got to get those useful idiots in the door, right? Yeah, no personal responsibility. Gotcha. So it turned out there was no choice involved. Oh, God. There was nothing more than the fact that she couldn't afford these basic necessities. There was more. Why couldn't she afford those? She made bad choices. She had babies out of wedlock. She didn't choose the right man. She didn't vet him well enough. She didn't get to know him well enough before she married him. You can blame the man all you want, but she's the one who chose this man. Isn't that her choice? Doesn't she have responsibility for choosing a good father for her kids? No, says the commie. So that's her fault. I became obsessed with thinking about diapers and other hygiene products. Yeah. Of course, you should have become obsessed with understanding the underlying fundamental reasons for poverty instead of just reading the Communist Manifesto. By the way, even the poorest people in America are richer than many of the middle class in the rest of the world, okay? Even the poorest in America. They got HUD, so they get a free house, they have a microwave, they have a refrigerator, they have food. If they're in New York, they probably have free internet thanks to Commie de Blasio cutting $1 billion from the police department so he can give people free internet. So, I mean, that sounds pretty rich to me compared to a lot of the rest of the world. By the way, what I don't understand here is if the ideal is to have these collectives, these co-ops, where everybody owns an equal share of the business. If that's the ideal, why doesn't it happen? Why isn't everything a co-op then? Why do we have these big corporations that have tons of employees? Doesn't Walmart have like 1 million employees? Why is there a Walmart? Why don't we have all of these fucking department stores littering the country that are all owned by co-ops? Well, the truth of the matter is it takes a lot of human capital and very specialized skills to be an entrepreneur and open a successful business. So we create this bullshit narrative that, it just couldn't be done because the rich, evil entrepreneur, he's got all the wealth. He stole all the pie. There's not enough pie left for us to do that. Even if you pooled it among 1 million people, really? Of course there would be enough capital. Hey, no, the majority of people don't have the necessary human capital to create a thriving business. That's why they always have to talk about co-opting, taking over control of already existing businesses, because they can't do it themselves. I'm a worker here, I'm making peanuts, but I'm the one producing the goods that make this company money and create the profit. I should get an equal piece of the pie. Yeah, it wouldn't be that big a piece of pie, by the way, if it was Walmart. I mean, you're talking about 1 million employees, take all the profit and split it up between all of them. You're talking about like 10 more bucks a week or something, or a month. Yeah. Give me a break. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments section, and please like and subscribe to my BitChute channel if you have not already. And if you really want to support any of my future work, go to therealistphilosopher.com. That is therealistphilosopher.com, and consider making a donation. Again, I could really use your help.